All right, well, it's 3 o'clock, so let me do the official welcome. Hey, everybody, welcome to TPH Live. I'm Dan Harris. We're live every weekday from my living room and the living rooms of many of the greatest meditation teachers we know. The goal here is to give you some meditative tools for dealing with these deeply weird and suboptimal times. And when we do meditation, we do just 5 minutes, and it's suitable for absolute beginners or seasoned pros. And then the other goal, as you've often heard me say if you've joined us before, is to create a little bit of community at a time when many of us feel cut off. Our teacher du jour is Jeff Warren, who's a great meditation teacher based in Toronto, Canada. He runs or co-founded something called the Consciousness Explorers Club, and he co-authored with me a book that I'm looking for on my shelf but can't find right now. There it is, but I'm not going to pick it up. It's called Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics, and he's been just core in my view in helping me and the 10% Happier team realize the 10% Happier brand into something larger and more effective and helpful in the world. So, Jeff, great to have you. Thank you for coming.
So happy to be here, man. Very happy.
So, what's on your mind today? You're going to lead a meditation in a few minutes. What's on your mind to tee it up?
I guess we think about what theme you want to do. I was thinking about the body. It's a very big theme, but I know for me that some sort of physical practice has been, I guess meditation for me has been a very physical practice. It's less been something about my mind and been more about something, or just as much something with my body. And I often start a meditation with doing a little shaking, or I like to feel my body before I sit, and then when I sit, I like to pay attention to it. And I've noticed that over the time of the years of being a practitioner, that the sense of being in my body has gotten larger and larger, and I've started to understand, and this is what I think is helpful, that in a sense the life of the body is slower than the life of the mind. That often I'll have a lot of speed or business going on up here, and the business and the speed up here is overriding the signals that are coming from down here, which are slower, which are more, they're at a different pace. And that as I can and part of, for me, deepening in practice has been learning to calibrate myself to that slower place, that slower rhythm, and then slowing myself down and learning to read the signals of the body. And I think it's just relevant for this time when we've got a lot of anxiousness and worrying and thinking about the future, and we're up in our heads with these different scenarios, that there is a kind of place that we can reorient to in our experience that's right here. It's our bodies. And that as we learn how to do that, it can become a real kind of home base or a place of refuge. I mean, this is all so painfully obvious, but I needed to have it pointed out to me, and I needed to kind of learn it for myself. So those are some thoughts I had, and thought we could have a chat about that, and I could lead a practice around that.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, when you talk about shaking, what do you mean? Because I think that could be confusing to people.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a practice that comes from Qigong, which is another practice I'm very passionate about. Although it's used in other systems and traditions and too. I mean, I'll show you guys. We'll actually do it for 30 seconds or something, and it just means standing up and kind of putting your attention in your lower belly, and then just sort of moving the body a little bit. And it's especially valuable. I mean, we're doing this on a Friday. It's 3 o'clock. I imagine there's a lot of people here who've been on their computers all day. I know for me, when I've been sitting all day or I've been on my computer, there's a real sense in which I feel stagnant. I can feel this kind of like creaky, stagnant kind of feeling in my body. And to me, standing up and doing a little bit of a shake can start to get things moving again. It can start to revitalize things and move some of the stagnant energy. And that's actually how they would describe it within a Qigong piece. So it's just means keeping your feet on the ground, and I'll show you. But it's not just that, that's just one example. I mean, yoga in a sense is another version of the same sort of thinking. That within the yoga thinking, especially initially, the asanas, the postures were there to be done before you sat. They were there to kind of help with getting the energy moving and creating alignment in the body. And the idea was that a kind of a vital and aligned body kind of set the ground, the bench set the kind of groundwork for a vital and aligned mind, and that they have an effect on each other. They're just on a bit of a delay. That was often how it was done at the beginning, where people would do an asana practice and then do a sitting practice. So So lots of different traditions and lots of different thinking around this. And even in proper Buddhism itself, in lots of schools of Buddhism, there's much more, especially like in Tibetan Buddhism, there are lots of like more animated body practices that are done quite deliberately. So, I'm all about bringing the body into the equation.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. So for this, so we're going to do it seated for most of it, but for the first 30 seconds to a minute here, we're going to do it standing up. So if you can do that, I got to just adjust my screen. And it did just obviously in a safe way. And if you're watching this at, I guess you're not watching, no one's watching this at work. So if your spouse or your roommate are looking strangely over at you, you can tell them to join in the fun. The Friday afternoon kind of a seizure rehearsal. So what we got here, what you want to do is you want to have your legs spread, maybe 2.5 feet apart or 2 feet apart, whatever's kind of comfortable, and have your knees just a little bit bent so it feels comfortable. And your arms can be kind of open a little bit. And then I like to have my hands either on my belly or just at the side. And then you just start doing this kind of up and down shake. So you're shaking from you're kind of going up and down on your knees, and you're letting everything be loose. And the idea is that everything's just sort of hanging. So we're just doing this kind of little shaky move. Look how good Dan looks. This is Dan on the Dan.
Or no?
You definitely can. We want people to feel like this is a safe place. So you dancing is going to make everyone feel better about themselves.
The cats think I've lost my mind.
So just this shake. And I think one thing to think about is kind of put your attention in your lower belly and kind of shake from there. Imagine that's where the center is, and the shaking is kind of coming from there. This is what my friend Therese says. She's a Qigong teacher. Kind of keep it there. So you're not like doing this over here. You're letting it be, it's just kind of, it's being directed from the center of the body. And see if you can kind of get into it. Like, oh yeah, we can do a little bit more of a shake here. Kind of like, yeah, there we go. Yeah. Yeah, because by the way, we're doing a dance party. We're not even doing a meditation anymore.
I feel like I might pull a hammy. Yeah,
I think this is the most, dance-related exercise you've done in probably 47 years since you were a little wee toddler. Yeah, and you can move your arms around a little bit too. Dan, I think you should want to do this. You want to kind of move your hips back and forth a little bit. I want to see some. There we go. Get a little rhythm. Okay, this is going to be somebody I hope is recording this. They're recording that. We'll make a little meme of that. Okay, so now let's stop. And now we'll start our proper meditation. That was sort of the prelude. And you can, close your eyes, or you can have them open, wherever feels comfortable. But the idea is that we just gave our body a shake, sort of like giving the snow globe a shake. And then now there may be some sensation in there that we can begin to pay attention to. So just, you can kind of bring the attention down into the body and just notice, having done that shaking, where do you feel? Is there any sensation that you feel? Is it any different? For me, I kind of feel it in the arms, the sort of buzziness of it in the chest. We're just kind of watching it with curiosity. It's just like that's our meditation object. And as we're doing this here, the breath is the great regulator too of the body, of our emotions. So let's see if we can start to maybe take a few slightly slower breaths, breathing out nice long exhales. And when you breathe out, it's sort of like, sensation is sort of like you're breathing out and just relaxing into your body, into the support of the chair or the cushion underneath you. Really letting yourself feel what it's like to be a body on your cushion. And then we're kind of switching, we're deliberately making this choice to not pay attention to, our thoughts, worries, things that may be there in the background, but shift the ratio of your attention so you're kind of, it's all moving into the body. What do you feel in the body? Where do you feel sensation through the posture? Sensation in the core and in the hands. And every time you breathe out, it's sort of like you're breathing out any of that swirly stuff that got that got buzzed up when we did our shaking. And the equanimity piece here is really means just being open to the experience. So sometimes when we do the shaking, it can feel like a lot of stuff does get stirred up, and the equanimity piece is sort of like, oh, can I open to that? Can I enjoy that feeling of energy in life? Can I let it be a kind of massage from the inside? So getting massaged from the inside, letting everything just sort of bubble up and through. And the other piece sometimes I do with the body is I just try to, can I actually, what is it, how does it change the experience if I try to deliberately feel respect for the body, for my body? Like, oh, thanks, body. Can I just enjoy the feeling of being this body? Can I enjoy the feeling of kind of warmth and humidity in life? What would it feel like to sit in a way where you're kind of enjoying the experience of sitting? The body is slower. You slow down the breath to pace the slowness of the metabolism. Whenever the body knows, it's slower. It's not knowing in words, it's feeling, it's more that beingness quality. And let's just, the last minute here, just connecting to that, just letting go of any agenda. Just let yourself be. You can just enjoy this break. Think of this as kind of coasting on the momentum of the sit at the very end. You just let go and ride it out. And you're the ultimate home base, the body. My friend calls this taking care of your birth. Okay, and that's our meditation. Don't have a bell.
That was great.
Those are great dance moves, Dan.
Yeah, I've long been complimented on my dance skills. Well, so there are a couple questions, but I'm sensitive to the time, and I know that you and I want to talk about something before we go. So maybe let's just do one question and then quickly, and then you and I can chat. Mary asks, "Do you think the body is smarter than the mind?"
That is a really interesting question. I think they're. How do I even answer that? It's tricky to answer because it's not really like they're two different things. They're one system. But there's no question that they have there's a different feeling of intelligence in those different systems. And we, I think, know this intuitively. If you think about the way, the kind of intelligence that's in the mind, which is wonderful, it's much more an intelligence that's around anticipating the future and thinking about the past and strategizing. And it's more of a horizontal intelligence, you know, where you're doing this kind of deliberate, it's forward moving, it's in time. The intelligence that comes from the body is much more of the moment. And I don't mean just that it's about the process of the body in the moment. A lot of people from different traditions talk about how the heart intelligence comes up through the body, which is kind of this sort of more intuitive intelligence of a kind of snapshot of how to be in the moment and how to respond in the moment. And I mean, I don't want to create a schism because I'm not saying there's not a role for the mind in that too, but that feels like that. The longer I practice, the more it feels like I understand what they're talking about. Like that comes from the body in some way. So I wouldn't say it's more intelligent. I would say, but I might say it's deeper, or more deeply in the moment. How about that? That seems like a fair way to put it.
Yeah, and you can see it reflected in our language. You talk about some sort of below the neck intelligence. You talk about the heart, the gut, knowing it in your bones, knowing it in your viscera. I think there's a lot to that. Anyway, great meditation. I love the way you guide meditation. You know that. I feel that way. But so just to close out on a Friday, Jeff and I wanted to talk about something. Sometimes when you get two goofballs together, sometimes really great. Most of the time, in my experience, great things can happen. But sometimes the goofballs will make a mistake. And so the last time Jeff and I were on together, we made a bit of a mistake. There was a moment toward the end of the meditation when Jeff called me, was joking around and called me Daniel-san, and I laughed because I thought it was very funny. And he then went on to kind of jokingly imitate a Western yoga teacher who gets carried away and uses words like namaste and yogic bliss and things like that. And again, I thought that was all very funny, but afterwards was pointed out to us that for some people that didn't land very well. In particular, the Daniel-san thing, you know, that's a reference to a movie from the 1980s that Jeff and I grew up with, The Karate Kid, where the teacher, Mr. Miyagi, teaches a boy named Daniel and refers to him as Daniel-san. So I've heard this Daniel-san meme many, many times. And anyway, it just struck me as funny and part of the jokey camaraderie that Jeff and I have. But after hearing the comments from people, we realized that, yeah, that actually isn't cool. So we both want to apologize for that. And Jeff, I want to bring you in to see what you have to say about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I apologize. I was gutted when I heard, I mean, I just found out yesterday that some people took it wrong and I hadn't even, it was just this brain fart. And when I went to research it, I was reading online about this one guy was talking about how that movie, how much he hates that movie. He's a young Asian American growing up in the States where when he was a kid, that movie came out at that time. And after that, people would make fun of his dad. And it was always like using that same Daniel-san or wax on, wax off. And it was a stereotype that really was like freaking terrible. And it never, for me, it was just an unconscious thing. And so the idea that people could come to a place of meditation that's supposed to be safe and to feel like they were upset by it is a terrible thing. And so I massively apologize. And I guess I also think about it as that it's a learning opportunity, and we were talking about this earlier, Dan, that just like there's an insight process that we do individually, that we're inside this practice, we're kind of learning about our own sort of unconscious behaviors and the consequences of those behaviors and seeing if we can bring them into consciousness. So there's this movement personally in consciousness of kind of moving, getting down and seeing some of that unconscious stuff and no longer being guided by it or driven by it. I feel like we're in the same thing as a culture. Because in the 80s, people didn't realize there was anything wrong with that, but we're living in a time where that's understood, that those biases are a lot more clear right now. And this is how it's going to happen. It's going to happen through people educating each other and sharing how they feel about things. And so I feel very thankful that people did write in and say that. And I know for myself, it's like, okay, I'm in this learning experience and I can do better. And I think that the whole culture is in a learning experience around this right now. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
well said. And I totally agree with everything you just said. And one of the points that was made to us is that this is a time when a lot of Asian Americans feel under siege because uh, there's been an uptick in discrimination as a consequence of the pandemic. So want to be sensitive to that as well. And then the final thing, just because we're almost out of time, just to say is that, one of the areas of balance that's been really important to me and to you, and I think both of us as a group is as a pair is that it's really important to both of us to talk about meditation in a way that both is respectful of where it came from, which by the way is Asia. At least the kind of meditation that I'm practicing is Buddhist meditation. I have a bunch of Buddhas on my desk right here in front of me, but that also we work hard to talk about it in fresh language, and with a lightheartedness, and that sometimes when you are trying to use new language and to be lightheartedness, you're going to fly too close to the sun and make a mistake. And that's what happened here. But I also want to maintain the commitment to talk about meditation in fresh ways, with a sense of humor, with a sense of vulnerability. So I don't know. Does any of what I've just said land with you?
Oh, it does. I mean, it's all, I think that having a playful attitude to these practices is what's going to make them most accessible to people. And ultimately, what you're interested in is people being able to access practices that can then help them in their lives. And if you put up a wall of being super serious all the time about everything, then it means a lot of people aren't going to be able to access the benefits of the practices. So I do think it's important to be light and be playful, and you can be light and playful while still being very respectful of the origin traditions. And I think but sometimes, like you said, like if you get, I mean, that's the impulsive spontaneity bubbles up through, and yeah, you just like say whatever, and you're having a good time, and and all of a sudden you just were dysregulated, and you said this stupid thing, and what you needed was a frontal lobe in that moment to go, that's not appropriate. And so that, I know for me, that's constantly the line I'm riding anyway as a human being. So.
Well, I really, having talked about this quite a bit with you over the last 24 hours as it's come to light, I just really appreciate how unguarded and open you've been to learning here. So
Mhm.